For centuries, history credited Columbus with the discovery of America, rarely asking what brought the Vikings here 5 centuries earlier or how long they truly stayed. New scientific evidence shows their quest was not a single voyage, but a lifeline for survival, driven by a desperate hunger for timber no Greenland forest could supply. If Norse explorers depended on North America, how does that rewrite everything we thought we knew about their presence on this continent? Textbooks long credited Columbus with opening the Americas to Europe, setting 1492 as the dawn of a new era. But archaeological evidence rewrites that timeline. The Vikings reached North America nearly 5 centuries earlier, not as wandering adventurers, but as skilled navigators with a clear goal. In 1021 AD, Vikings stood on the shores of Newfoundland, their presence confirmed by laboratory analysis of wood cut with metal tools, a technology unknown to local peoples at the time. Their voyages were not accidents of wind or chance. The sagas, once dismissed as legend, describe expeditions led by figures like Leif Erikson and Thorfinn Karlsefni, who crossed the North Atlantic in search of something vital, resources their homeland could not provide. The Norse were not seeking spices or gold. Their world revolved around survival. Greenland, settled by Eric the Red's followers, offered little more than stone, ice, and scrub. Without timber, there could be no ships, no homes, no fires to survive the Arctic night. The solution lay across the ocean, in the dense forests of a land they called Vinland. This was not a footnote to the Age of Discovery. It was a deliberate, organized effort to support a fragile colony at the edge of the known world. The true story of the Vikings in America is not one of fleeting contact, but of calculated risk and relentless adaptation. Wind scours the Greenland coast, driving snow across a landscape stripped bare. The Norse settlers who followed Eric the Red found themselves in a world almost devoid of trees. Only patches of low birch and willow clung to sheltered valleys stunted by cold and wind. Pollen samples drawn from ancient lake beds reveal that even these sparse woodlands shrank quickly after the Norse arrived. By the early 11th century, less than a tenth of Greenland's surface held any woody growth at all, and what remained was rapidly consumed for fuel and fencing. The climate offered no relief. Summers were brief and cool, winters pressed in with months of darkness and ice. With each passing year, the demand for timber outpaced what the land could provide. Building a single ship required tall, straight trunks, resources nowhere to be found on this rocky island. Even the simplest repairs became impossible without fresh timber. Settlers turned to driftwood washed in by distant storms, but this was unpredictable, often rotten, and never enough. In this environment, every stick of wood became precious, and the search for better supplies would shape the fate of the colony. The forests of Greenland had never been thick, but now for the Norse, they had all but vanished. Shipwrights in Greenland faced a relentless dilemma. Each longship demanded between 20 and 30 mature trees, straight, knot-free trunks, none of which the local landscape could offer. Eric the Red's settlement, carved out of rock and tundra, depended on these vessels for survival. Ships brought grain, iron, and news from Iceland and Norway. Without new timber, a damaged hull meant isolation or ruin. The numbers grew daunting. A single trading voyage, a new barn, or repairs after a winter storm could exhaust every available scrap. As the years passed, settlers dismantled abandoned buildings, stripped driftwood from beaches, and rationed every board. Still, the need only grew. By the early 11th century, a community of thousands required a steady flow of wood for homes, fences, tools, and above all, ships. Eric the Red's leadership rested on more than bold exploration. It demanded constant ingenuity against ecological limits. The forests of Vinland were not a distant curiosity. They became a lifeline. The search for timber pressed men to risk the Atlantic storms, shaping every decision and every voyage that followed. Inside a laboratory in Reykjavik, Lisbeth Gudmundsdottir examines a tray of ancient wood fragments under a microscope. Each sliver, some no larger than a fingernail, carries the secret history of a vanished colony. Over several years, her team catalogued 8,552 fragments from Norse farmsteads across Greenland. The process is painstaking. Thin sections are sliced, stained, and mounted on glass slides. Under magnification, the cellular anatomy reveals patterns unique to each species. Most samples are native birch and willow, or driftwood swept in by Arctic currents. But a handful stand out, pieces that should not exist in Greenland at all. One fragment shows the dense, resinous grain of jack pine. Another shows the fine rays and smooth texture of hemlock. Both trees grow only in eastern North America. No pollen, seed, or fossil record places them in Europe or Greenland during the Middle Ages. The wood is unweathered, its rings sharp and intact, betraying a cut from a living tree. On several pieces, the tool marks are unmistakable, broad V-shaped facets from an iron axe, unlike the ragged tears left by stone tools or the eroded edges of driftwood. The angle and regularity of the cuts suggest practiced hands, working green timber, not scavenging debris from the shore. Goodman's-Dotter's analysis leaves little room for doubt. The imported fragments make up less than 1% of the total, but their presence is decisive. These were not accidental finds or gifts from passing traders. They are material proof of deliberate transatlantic voyages, Norse crews harvesting, shaping, and transporting North American wood back to Greenland. In the ruins of a high-status manor at Igaliku, jack pine beams once supported the roof, while hemlock boards framed storage chests and doors. The evidence speaks clearly. The Norse did not just visit Vinland. They built their world with its forests one voyage, one tree at a time. A single year stands out from the deep past, 1021 AD. At Lanzo Meadows, a windswept headland on Newfoundland's northern coast, the timeline of European presence in the Americas is carved into the very rings of ancient wood. In a quiet laboratory, tree ring analysts examined 3 pieces of fir and juniper, each bearing the unmistakable signature of Norse axes. But dating these fragments required more than carbon decay. It called for a cosmic clock. In 993 AD, a massive solar storm bombarded Earth, leaving a spike of radioactive carbon in trees across the globe. This cosmic fingerprint, preserved in a single bright ring, gave scientists a starting point. By counting the growth layers from that marker to the bark, researchers arrived at an exact date. The wood was felled in 1021 AD. Not a decade, not a century, down to the very year. This is the earliest unbroken link between Europe and the Americas, confirmed not by legend, but by atomic evidence. The Lanzo Meadows site, first excavated in 1960, had already revealed turf-walled houses, iron nails, and the telltale offcuts from timberwork. But until now, its age remained an estimate, floating somewhere in the early medieval haze. The new method, developed by a team at the University of Groningen, left no room for doubt. The wood's outer rings, cut clean with metal blades, showed no sign of weathering or drift. Here, Norse carpenters worked living trees, shaping beams and planks for their own use, or perhaps for the journey home. The Vinland sagas speak of voyages to a wooded land, of timber gathered for Greenland's hungry settlements. For centuries, these tales blurred the line between history and myth. Now the science is unambiguous. In 1021 AD, Norse explorers stood beneath the spruce and birch of Newfoundland, axes in hand, their story etched in the language of the cosmos. New evidence rewrites who shaped the earliest chapters of American history. Science is uncovering deeper Viking footprints, and the line between legend and fact shifts beneath our feet. The story of first contact is still being written. Its echoes still shape how we see our own beginnings.